Welcome back to the Boardman Black and Gold podcast with Zane and David. And we've got polar opposites for this week 2 recap. I don't think we can get much lower than we are now, especially after how high we were just a week ago. But the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to find a way to get right back to 500, to mediocrity. And no better way to do that than really putting up a stinker against a team that you probably could have beaten. Where do we start, David? I don't even know where to start.
Well, I think we can knock the positives out of the way real quick because I have 3.
Okay.
And then that's it. 1, Boswell, 2 for 2. Gotta love that.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, 3 for 3. I think. And then let's see. Jalen Ramsey played pretty out of his mind again. Made a lot of nice splash plays. And then the coaches listened to everybody, and Jalen Warren got a ton of touches and was insane. Was the only really good-looking part of our offense. So for me, that's all my positives.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's about what I've got too. Because frankly, I think a lot of the problems that we thought were going to get fixed really did not get fixed at all from week 1 to week 2. I mean, obviously the defense gave up 31 points, although we'll kind of dive into this a little bit too, because I think that's a misinformed 31 points, if that makes sense, but we'll dive into that in a second. But offensively, especially, yes, Jalen Warren, a lot of touches and was very effective. He was our leading rusher and our leading receiver on Sunday. So Jalen Warren, we didn't see a lot of him in week 1. We saw much more of him this last week, and I think that's a step in the right direction. And honestly, I mean, since we're on the topic of Jalen Warren, can we pretty much say that he has taken over the backfield for the Steelers, especially given what we've seen out of Kenneth Gainwell and another person whom I will not mention just yet, but we'll talk about him eventually. But what do you think as far as that goes?
Oh, I think absolutely. He's without a doubt earned the number 1 spot. And I think that he needs to continue to do what happened this week. Give him the most touches, use him in all your key plays. I think that we're seeing that, with Jalen Warren, he's getting 3 or 4 yards or 5 yards every carry. And that's when you see Kenneth Gainwell go in there, not much is different except Kenneth Gainwell, and he gets nothing. So I think that it's a huge difference when he's in the game, especially in the receiving game too. I mean, one of the only positive plays of the offense in the second half was his extremely long catch that was almost a touchdown. So I think that absolutely he has earned. I mean, he might be our biggest star on the offense right now based off of performance of play.
I think so too. And unfortunately, I think Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he had an awful game. Did he have as good of a game as week 1? No, absolutely not. But I don't think he had a great game. But I think the fact that his offensive line did him no favors once again just does not help anything. And, he made some pretty remarkable throws that were not caught. I'm thinking of the one specifically deep down the right sideline to Pat Freiermuth. I mean, he rolled out. I mean, he looked like he was 25 years old again. That was a perfectly thrown ball. And for a guy that you're paying a good bit of money to be your number 1 tight end, that one's got to be caught. And again, there's a lot of plays in this game that I feel like if they go our way, then it's a different outcome. But they just didn't go our way this week, and we come away with a double-digit loss.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And I think that, yeah, that catch, I was thinking about that play the entire game because, I think we only ended up with the field goal that drive. And if he had caught that, that was like a 60-yard bomb. And it was perfectly thrown and he just dropped it. And so it's so unfortunate. And, the miscommunication that caused the first interception that probably could have been a touchdown if Calvin Austin had come back to the pylon like Aaron Rodgers wanted him to. I don't really think that's Calvin Austin's fault. I think that it's that's the play's broken play. You're just trying to get open. I'm not going to blame a guy for trying to get open. I get that Aaron Rodgers, being the veteran, playing for, the amount of years he's played, knows what wide receivers normally do. But hey, when you got wide receivers like us who aren't coached and barely see the field and haven't really had a quarterback, I don't really know if you can expect them to do what they're supposed to do. But yeah, the O-line is horrible. It is like absolute garbage. Even Zach Frazier, I was watching, I was like, ah, like, he wasn't doing anything crazy. And what scared me the most was that Broderick Jones wasn't horrible. Like Broderick Jones, I think may have improved from last week, and the O line is still garbage. So there's just so many issues with this team right now. It seems like week one may have been overinflated because we realized the Jets came right back down to earth playing Buffalo. And, we came back down to earth at home against Seattle. And so I'm worried if there's just, it seems in a lot of ways that we really haven't changed from last year. A lot of issues from last year that have been the problems haven't been properly handled.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line struggled to start last year, and I thought about that a little bit. And would you agree with me that it got better as the year went on, or what do you think about that? Because I'm trying to process that myself.
I'd say our O line I'd say our O line last year. I don't remember it being horrible. Like I remember it being fine. I don't remember. I remember Russell Wilson specifically being able to stand in the pocket for a little bit, and to have a little bit of time where he's not moving. Aaron Rodgers hasn't had that. Like honestly, I can't think of a passing play longer than 1 second where he hasn't had to move the entire first two games. I mean, offensive line coach should be fired. Just changes need to be made with this O line because ever since like I talked about it, I think like our week zero, our golden age of O line. When we had to Castro and Pouncey stuff like that. Ever since those guys have left, it has been below average, borderline bottom of the league. So I just and yeah, the announcer said it multiple times. I think it was Mark Sanchez. Like a 41-year-old guy is not going to be able to take this for like the whole year. Like he's going to be done pretty soon.
No, and that's completely true. It's not a sustainable business operation to keep letting your 41-year-old quarterback get hits. And I think like right at the end of the first half, I think we got the ball just with like a little bit of time left. I think we only ran one play and Rodgers got hit on that play too. And it's like unnecessary stuff. Like if we can't protect him, then he's not going to be playing much longer. We're going to be having Mason Rudolph out there or Skylar Thompson or whatever. Like that's the thing. And, we saw even just Joe Burrow. He's going to be out for 3 months now because his offensive line can't protect him. Like, offensive line is perhaps the most important thing for an offense to actually survive at a base minimum, but then also to thrive thereafter. Like, you have to have a good offensive line if you want to be successful offensively. And the Steelers have just not had that. And again, I think it got better last year because I remember in that Raiders week that Justin Fields was running for his life and that he was making things happen. And I think Najee had a nice game against the Raiders last year. And we're thinking to ourselves, it has nothing to do with the offensive line because the offensive line is not playing any part into the success. But I think after that week, it got better. So can we expect it to get better? Or is this a problem we're just going to have to deal with all year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see. I've had hope, and we had hope that the defense would look better this week, and in my opinion, they didn't. Besides Jalen Ramsey making some spectacular plays, I think that we've had hope for so long that we would make these fixes and change these things. But I think that Mike Tomlin's just content. I think that he doesn't know how to coach someone out of their abilities where they are right now, and I think that I don't see it getting better, like in any way. Like I don't know how it gets better. I mean, you've had a whole off season, a decent amount of time to work with this quarterback, and these guys have been gelling for how long? It's not like any of these guys are rookies. Fatanu, yes, he's kind of getting his first steps in there, but everyone else has had a decent amount of time in the NFL. So it's not like we're waiting for these guys to grow or anything. It's like they're here, and this is what we're getting. I just think it's extremely unfortunate that this is the result. And line of scrimmage is the most important part of the game, and I think it's the most important part of the game. And it wins you games even if nothing else is working. Like look at the Eagles. These first two games, has their passing game been great? Not really.
No, it's been bad. It's been bad, in fact.
Right. And has Saquon Barkley's done fine. He hasn't been exploding like he did last year. So the key difference of why they're 2-0 is their O line. And you can not have a passing game, but still have an O line and win a football game. And obviously a good defense, which it doesn't seem like we have right now.
Well, there's a crazy stat that I was made aware of just recently. There have been 10 straight games that the Steelers have led up over 300 yards of offense, and it's the longest active streak in the NFL, which I know we sucked at the end of last year and we couldn't stop a light breeze, but that's really discouraging. The fact that we, the most expensive defense in the NFL, can't do anything to stop opposing offenses, that's not good. And I will say, we got hurt this week and we are very hurt right now. And we saw a lot of the rookies come in, Bruner as well as Sawyer. Yaya Black had a nice game. I think one of the announcers was saying that they were playing good in the intermediate, but they just ran out of gas because there was no manpower left to really deal with anything. But at the same time, you had a fairly healthy week one. You did lose a couple of guys like JPJ and as well as Deshaun Elliott, but you know, what is wrong with this defense to where the scheme can't, you know, the scheme can't pick us up when we're losing a couple of guys. It seems like we might get a couple of guys this week, but I don't know. I'm just very discouraged. And to see how often we're just letting up big plays, and third downs. Oh, third downs are just
Oh
like
my.
they're killing me. They're absolutely killing me.
Well, and yeah, and before, like, all right, Deshaun Elliott, Joey Porter get hurt, they're not in this game to start. But to start the game, when we had all the guys that we had in, besides Derek Harmon, who we haven't seen play regular season ball yet, they were gashing us in the run. Like, it was no different from week one. They were running the ball just as fine. And not only that, Sam Darnold was just, lighting up against us too. Yeah, he had a couple of picks. But I mean, Cooper Kupp had a great game. Jackson Smith-Jigba had a great game. I mean, who didn't have a great game? And that's the real issue. Is okay. Like, who knows what the Niners are? But Sam Darnold didn't do anything, and I didn't really see a lot of the stats. But I know Cooper Kupp didn't have a good game, and so yeah, they did nothing. And then they blow up against us. The Jets did nothing against the Bills. Justin Fields completely fell back down to earth, and Justin Fields had like a Pro Bowl type game against us. So I mean, what does that say? And I think that again, I've tried to like not be negative and not call out Mike Tomlin because I know I do it a lot, and I'm like, all right, I'm probably, just like a noisy gong right now, annoying people, but when it's the defense, it's Mike Tomlin. He is the defensive guy. It's his defense. This highest paid defense he's picked out. And it's horrible. It is doing horrible. TJ Watt is almost non-existent. Where the heck's Cam Hayward? Patrick Queen is underperforming unbelievably, which makes me so like sad because I want Patrick Queen to be so good. Where is our secondary besides Jalen Ramsey making a few plays? It is pathetic that they're this bad with this amount of money in them.
I agree. Now, I wanted to throw a wrench into things because, you talk about Mike Tomlin, and I agree. I agree with you. But at what point do we say, Terrell Austin, you got to get out of here? Because, I mean, again, not only is Mike Tomlin working with the same people, but so is Terrell Austin. He's been working with the same hand, and now we're trying to change things up. We're giving him new pieces, and the scheme looks even worse than it did a year ago. So, we don't move TJ Watt around on the line. He stays exactly where he is on the left side of the defensive line, and they always run away from him. And in the absence of Alex Highsmith especially, they're going to run away from TJ Watt all the time. If you never move him around, you're never going to get any success. Sure, he doesn't have a sack, but at the same time, are you really giving him a shot? So at what point do we say, okay, Terrell Austin, you are a big part of the problem too, not as a scapegoat, but truly a part of the problem?
Well, I think that, yeah, I mean, any time is good for me. I think that we've seen this, and this is another problem. I mean, it always goes back to the head, but Tomlin has consistently picked worse and worse coordinators. Like Keith Butler was a carryover of Dick LeBeau. He was in Dick LeBeau's defense as like a linebackers coach with Bill Cowher before Mike Tomlin even arrived. And that was the defensive coordinator. And, so I still accredit that back to them. Now I don't know, was Terrell Austin right after Keith Butler retired?
I think there might have been one more in between, but I don't know that for sure.
I don't really remember, but yeah, I mean, it's just another inside guy. Like Mike Tomlin just picked horrible coordinators. And I don't know, a lot of the rumors are part of that. He doesn't want people smarter than him. Another part of it, he just may like people that he's friends with. And so I would say, yeah, 10 games in a row doing this with this defense, you can get rid of him as soon as possible. It's similar to the way I feel about Matt Canada. Like, you are not helping us at all, and get out. Like, anything is better. anything is better than what this defense is, especially with the players that we have on the field. I don't know. I would have to look, but like, has there ever been a defense that has this many players that is underperforming this poorly? Like, it's and especially the Steelers, which we our bread and butter is defense.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, and it's interesting too because you think about the Packers and how they were expected to have a good defense coming into this year, and then a good defense, not a great defense, but a good defense, above league average. Then they add Micah Parsons, who obviously is a game wrecker, a TJ Watt type of caliber player, and they're the best defense in the NFL by a wide margin. They're not underachieving. They even lost a couple of pieces too. They lost Jair Alexander. They're so insanely good in these first 2 weeks. And we're seeing this from the Steelers consistently every single year that the defense just does not live up to its own potential, nor does it live up to its own paycheck. Because if you're going to pay so much money to these defensive guys and not be able to invest in a wide receiver too, what is this? How does this amount to any sort of success, over the course of a season? And sure, maybe we're overblowing this because it's week 2, but here's what I'll say. We have a pretty easy schedule coming up in the next several weeks, and if we keep giving up 30 points a game, if we keep giving up 300 yards of offense a game, if we lose any one of these, next 3 weeks, I think, then there's something to be said about how awful this defense is as a unit, especially with the amount of money that we're committing to it.
Well, I completely agree, and I think that the key factor is coaching. Because if you go back, I said this I think also in our week 0, where it's like teams, especially us, the past 2 years looked like we've tried to be like the 2021 Rams and buy all these players and go and win a Super Bowl. Well, the 2021 Rams had Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell, and I don't know who their defensive coordinator was, but he was probably pretty decent. And I think that that's the difference. Is well, we literally did exactly what they did with getting Jalen Ramsey, and then we've added a ton of other pieces to offense and defense, and yet there is no change. Russell Wilson, he had a career high against the Cowboys this week, but before last year when we played the Bengals, I think he had a career high in passing yards then. And so it's not new for a quarterback we bring in to have one good game and throw 4 touchdowns. So it still goes back to this coaching. Like, you can bring in whoever you want, put whoever you want on the field. But if we're just going to continue this, well, it's not even mediocrity anymore, below average coaching, and schemes and everything, it's so unfortunate that we do not help our players at all. Like, you see other coordinators and coaches just making guys great. Guys that it's like, who are you? Guys that were former Steelers, making them great. It's just so frustrating to see that we have such inadequate coaching.
Well, even too, I'm thinking about the actual game plan that went on. So even after that 65-yard catch and run by Jaylen Warren, you know what we did immediately after that on 2nd and goal, right before that interception? We ran it with Kenneth Gainwell for negative yards. Again, you've got Darnell Washington. You've got Jonnu Smith, who we saw in a jet sweep in week 1. You have options. Sure, I get it. Jaylen Warren just ran half the length of the football field, and he's probably tired, so you probably can't throw him back out there again. But at the same time, just punch it in. And that game's completely different if you score a touchdown there, which you should score a touchdown there. And again, it's this scheme. It's like whenever we have a good week, we regress the next week. And then it seems like we regress another week until we finally do figure it out and claw our way back. The Seahawks in week 1 looked really, really bad in almost every facet of the imagination. And then they come back and then they do this in week 2. How many times have the Steelers done that? When do we see bounce back weeks from the Steelers? And not so much to where, yes, we had a good week 1 where we actually won the game. Maybe not good, as far as the holistic view of the game goes, but I feel like that's something to build off of because we were both very, very critical last week, but also very positive because the fact that we did win the game and we had things that we knew that we could improve on. And instead of improving on them, they got worse in almost every sense of the imagination this week. And, they get blown out at home against a rabid crowd who, in the last 5 minutes of the game, you wouldn't have known that anybody was there. You would have thought it was a Pirates game in the middle of August or something like that. It was unbelievable seeing how quickly that stadium got rid of itself.
Oh, well, and rightfully deserved. I mean, a home opener against a team that's 0-1, you never want to be somebody's first win, even though it's week 2. It was just it left a horrible taste in the mouth for so many reasons. And I think that gets into kind of like, the thing that changed the game. And before I kind of talk about the play specifically, I was watching a little bit of Mike Tomlin's press conference after. And the reason why I've kind of lost hope just in general, and I feel like this happens every year, but it's because of Mike Tomlin's responses. Like, as a head coach, he just annoys the crap out of me. But they asked him, like he opened by talking about how last week, kind of the reason why they won was off of a crazy play on special teams, and the reason why we lost was kind of similar to that. And he was like, that's just how that league goes. Like, there's always plays like that happen, and they're going to go your way sometimes and not go your way other ways. And he was like, we can just hope that we play good enough that those plays don't decide the game. And I'm like, you have never done that. You have never gotten to that point. Like, you've never been a number one seed. You've never gotten to the point where you are that team that a fluke play like that doesn't, like, maybe back when we had Dick LeBeau's defense and we were in the Super Bowls, maybe we were like that. But it's been a long time since we've had a team under Mike Tomlin that a fluke play like that doesn't cause the game.
And it was such a fluke play. Like, let me give you some history for this. So obviously we're talking about Caleb Johnson completely botching a kickoff. Immediately after they kicked a 54-yard field goal, the next play on the kickoff, it's a knuckleball, it bounces in the landing zone, and Caleb Johnson, whether or not he touched it or not, I still think he touched it. I don't know about you, I think he touched it. But anyway, it grazes his ear and goes and it is sitting in the end zone. And I get it. This is his second professional game, and the kickoff rules are different from college than the NFL. But again, how much football have you watched in your entire life to know that on a kickoff, the ball is live? You have to get the football. And it's just sitting in the end zone, and all I can think of is, oh my gosh, please go out of the back of the end zone. Please go out of the back of the end zone. Sure enough, it dives right before that. The Seahawks recover it, and it is the first time in 45 years that a kickoff team has scored a touchdown that did not change possessions. They scored a field goal, and then they immediately scored a touchdown without surrendering possession of the football. That is unbelievable. That can you like I was thinking this like as it's happening too. I'm like, has that ever happened ever in the history of this league? And sure enough, it almost goes back to the AFL era where no, this has not happened in almost half a century, and we just let it happen. And let me give you a little bit more context even to this. So again, as a coach, you're trying to put your players in a position to win. Do you remember Caleb Johnson ever doing any special teams when he was at Iowa? I don't watch any Iowa football, I'll be honest. That's like watching paint dry. But do you ever remember Caleb Johnson doing anything on special teams at Iowa?
I do not know.
Only 6 times in his collegiate career did he ever do anything on special teams. 6 times. You can count them on 6 fingers how many times he was involved on special teams. In the first 2 weeks, he has been the primary kickoff returner. Like, what are we doing here? We've got Calvin Austin. Heck, we've got Connor Hayward, who doesn't have a niche on the team at all. And we've got this guy who's done literally nothing. I mean, I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but I thought that our returns on kickoffs in the Jets week were poor. And I was thinking to myself, we can't keep letting Caleb Johnson be the guy back there. Sure, if you want it to be Kenneth Gainwell, that's fine. If you want that to be Calvin Austin, that's even better. But why are we chucking this guy out there when he obviously has nothing to do with special teams and he costs us the football game? That's a 7-point swing. Who knows what happens after that if we actually get the ball? Because if we were to get the ball normally, like literally every single team in the last 45 years has done after a kickoff, then it would have been a 17-14 game. We would have had the ball, and that would have been the start of the fourth quarter, essentially. You got all game to figure the rest of it out.
Right. And there are a few things I have to say about this play specifically. One, it is, I didn't even know. Seeing the play again, it did look like he touched it. But if it had just hit his helmet, maybe he didn't know. But, the old rules were if you didn't touch it, you didn't have to go. Well, that's not even true, actually. Never mind. Hang on. So the rules have changed with kickoff a little bit. However, there's no excuse. And I think that before I talk about the absolute fumble that we had, yeah, I will say it's interesting that he hasn't gotten snaps. It's almost like they're kind of like, oh, we didn't make him running back 2, but we want to appease the fans and like for him to be on the field. So yeah, okay, you do that instead of Calvin Austin and Connor Hayward. And Connor Hayward, by the way, I've seen plays from him both weeks that made me convinced the only reason he's on the team is because of his brother. And I'm going to say yeah, our returns have been horrible. Every other team I'm watching make these returns, it's getting to at least the 30-yard line. And the NFL has made a huge deal about how, oh, there's so many returns and they're getting a 30-yard line. It's like that's like a parent saying, like, asking their kid to take out the trash, and when they get back saying, "Oh, thank you for taking out the trash. That was so kind." You literally just made them. Like stop commenting on this kickoff return because you're making them return the kickoffs. So like it doesn't their whole point of saying it's a good thing is mute because it's a forced thing. But I would say that I wouldn't put too much blame on Caleb Johnson for a couple of reasons. One, because yeah, why is he back there if he's never had snaps there? He doesn't look comfortable there. Why are you like why is he back there when you have other guys like say Calvin Austin who we know can return the football well? Like that to me doesn't make sense. And another thing, again, this goes back. I think this whole thing is also coaching with the fact that he's back there and that he's not running back too. But also coaching. I don't care. I love our special teams coach. And I think that he's super energetic. But our special teams, besides Boswell, haven't really looked that good either. But it is part of like, okay, yeah, that's your fault. Why does that player not know that? Like, if you have two people back there to return the kick, you have to tell two people what they have to do. Not 52, just two guys. You have to tell them what the rules are and what they have to do. And you can't even do that. You can't even do that. And if this isn't unusual, in 2012 or 2013, a home opener against the Tennessee Titans, one of our kick returners grabbed the ball and kneeled the football, but his foot, half of it was outside the end zone, so it was a safety. We've done stuff like this all the time. Why is this a Steelers thing that we're just the things that don't happen ever? We're letting happen because we just forget to tell our players. Like it's not the player's fault if you refuse to tell two players what they're supposed to do. It just annoys the crap out of me that we consistently let this happen.
I respectfully disagree with you that this game is not Caleb Johnson's fault because I'm pretty convinced that it is. However, I do agree with both of those 2 points. I disagree, but I agree with you at the same time because yes, how many times can you go into a job and not know the rules of your job? Like, how does that happen? Like, if you get hired somewhere, your higher ups are supposed to tell you what you're supposed to do. And if they don't do that, and if they just assume that you know that, then they're not preparing you for success. And again, this is the whole thing, as we talk about it all the time. You as a coach are told to put your players in a position to succeed. And the Steelers they don't seem to do that nearly enough. And again, it costs you this week because of this oversight. Again, this is a massive swing. If it's a 17-14 game, I think we win this game. But you can't just give up a free 7 points and expect that to not come back and bite you. And again, there are people that are saying, yeah, it wasn't, that really didn't have much of a difference in the game. Excuse me, 7 points in a football game is the highest amount of points you can score on any one possession. Like, what are you talking about? That makes no sense. Can you have an IQ of over 2? Absolutely, that made a difference in the game. What are you talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it took all of the steam out of the game. Like, I don't know if you felt similar, but after that field goal, like, I still felt fine. Like, I still was like, okay, it's only 3 points. Like, we've been able to get down the field. Um, But yeah, I mean, I think that the one thing is the Seahawks just game planned at halftime, and we didn't. Like you look, we came out of halftime, it was a 3-and-out punt, and then they went right down the field. And Mark Sanchez said this because the Seahawks offense kind of sputtered after their game-opening drive touchdown. Mark Sanchez said it was like you can see this offense works extremely better when it's game planned, and when they just kind of like plan plays together. And then they went right down and scored. And I think they're like, yeah, they just continued to do that. And, another historic thing you showed me was that no one had ever done really what Kenny Walker did to close out the game on his 19-yard touchdown. And I think that, yeah, all in all, our friend Joe, our group chat just said it, just there's so many problems. So many problems. I don't even know where to start. You could look at every aspect of the Steelers football team and find a problem besides Chris Boswell.
Yeah, absolutely. And diving into that, what I sent to you, just to give some context, it was the first time, I don't know in how long, but a very long time that there was a third or fourth and goal of 19 or more yards where they got a touchdown. Like they ran for a touchdown specifically. And on that play, it was funny because I was watching with my dad and my grandparents, and they're fairly pessimistic Steelers fans while watching the Steelers, so that was, that made everything fun. But at the same time, it's like we're watching this, we're like, they're not trying to score. They're just trying to get a couple of yards to make the field goal shorter. And we somehow let up a touchdown on a 3rd and goal from the 20-yard line. Like, how is that possible? It's historic what we keep doing, and they keep doing it. Like, you said it several times. We keep writing the wrong type of history.
Right. And I think that, like, again, what does that show you? And we saw this last year with teams playing us. Like, they weren't trying to score. They were totally fine getting a field goal. What does that show you about our team? That the Seattle Seahawks, not even a Super Bowl contender at this current point, they're content and not threatened by us to just be like, yeah, we can go up by 10 with what, 6 minutes left or something, and we're gonna win. Like, we're not worried. What does that show you? To me, that shows me that we're pretty garbage and that we're a mess. So, I don't even know what to think about next week. Like, I've been thinking about it more and more when this leading up to this call, but especially after last week with what New England did, I'm just perplexed. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I don't know what to think about this team.
Okay, before we get to New England, I want to do a couple of quick shout outs because there were a couple of key plays that I think are worth mentioning. Jack Sawyer had his first NFL sack. That was a big sack.
Yes.
You're giving me the little fist bump there.
Oh yeah, that was huge. I was going to say that in the positives and then I forgot. But yeah, that was cool to see. Him and Nick Herbert did a decent job filling in.
And then the pass deflection by Cam Hayward that Nick Herbig did end up picking off and sending Dak the other way, that was a great play. That again, that's the type of play that's, should bury a team. That's the second interception that Darnold had thrown to that point. And it's like, okay, we go down and we scored off of that. Or no, did we score off of that? I don't think we did, actually.
I think we may have gotten a field.
Oh, no. That was the DK touchdown. That was the DK touchdown. So we did score off of that, which is good. That put us up. And, again, we just need to we need to make those plays worth it. Because, again, we almost forget to mention those types of things because of the overall negativity that we have with this team. There were good plays, but there wasn't good play singular overall with this defense, nor with this offense, really. So, again, that's the type of thing is, at the end of the day, you want to look back at a game and say, okay, did we give it our best? Yes. Did we lose? Yes. Am I okay with this loss? Am I really okay with any loss? Not really. But, this one doesn't make it too hard to swallow because, it seemed like the other team just beat us. Not the case this week because we beat ourselves. And that's that it seems like that's a common theme over the last several years. And that's kind of just what I wanted to finish off with talking about the Seahawks week is, can you sleep at night? Knowing what you did on the field, from the coach's standpoint, from the player's standpoint, from the front office standpoint, like, can you sleep at night with the product that you put out on the field this last week? And if you can't, which you shouldn't be able to, the question next is, what are you going to do about it?
Right. And I agree. I think the answer to that question should definitely be no. And if it is, then you shouldn't be coaching. And so, yeah, I hope that I don't know, we were really hopeful, even though it was a win. Maybe because it's a loss, they'll work harder to fix some things. And maybe because it was a win last week, they didn't really lock in as hard. I don't know. But it doesn't really seem like Mike Tomlin's teams rally well from losses. It seems like the losses tend to just stack up. So I'm not really, expecting much different going into next week. But going into next week, there's a lot of interesting things. New England getting their first win, putting up a lot of points, also allowing a lot of points, has me very confused but interested in this week. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really know what to think either because I think I was a little bit higher on the Patriots coming into this season than their week 1 performance indicated. I mean, they lost to the Raiders. It was a 1-score game, but, losing to a team that was, bottom 3rd or bottom 4th or even right at the bottom of the league last year, that's not a great way to start your season. Now, at the same time, they are going to be home this week. It seemed like Drake May had a better week this last week, especially against the Dolphins, whom, again, are not a good team by any means. But, they're kind of a mixed bag. They're not running the ball exceptionally well. They're throwing the ball fairly well, to be honest. And, their defense is, probably not as great as advertised. I think people were thinking that the Patriots defense was going to be better than what we've seen in the first 2 weeks of this season. But, I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted on what to think about this one. Probably just as much as you are. And I think this is kind of one of those weeks where it's like, this is going to tell us more about the Steelers than it tells us about the Patriots, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that this will be like, okay, which game was kind of the fluke here. I think that it'll have a lot to do with that. I don't think we're going to get the answers we hope for. I think our defense is still going to struggle. Especially, I think that Drake May is going to be able to throw the ball around like Sam Darnold was able to, especially now without Alex Highsmith. Even though Jack Sawyer got a sack and Nick Herbert was making some plays, I don't really think we're going to get great pressure in there. I mean, we really haven't gotten great pressure consistently throughout these first two games. And so I don't really, and our secondary, again, does not look good. Our middle linebackers don't look the best. So I predict our defense to continue to struggle, but I do predict our offense to actually do pretty well. I think that the fact that Miami scored 8 points, which 8 points in garbage time against Indianapolis, who led up 28 points to Denver, and then scored was it 28 points or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
27, lots of points against New England. Um, and like again, the Raiders didn't even score a touchdown against the Chargers. So I think that the Patriots defense doesn't look that threatening at all either. So I think we could have a similar type of game like week one.
Okay. So here's what I'll say. I think that the defense, kind of as a contrary, not a contrary, but kind of an inverse to your statement. I think that the defense might play better because, it doesn't seem like the Patriots are running the ball very well. They've got your boy Travion Henderson as well as Ramondre Stevenson, who Stevenson has gotten the majority of the touches for the running backs, but they have simply not really run the ball at all. They're not even really trying to run the ball. They're averaging under 4 yards a carry through the first two games, and again, Stevenson's been the primary guy for that. So, maybe this is an opportunity for our run defense to actually figure something out in the middle. Maybe Cam Hayward has a better week. I saw Derek Harmon is listed as questionable as opposed to out. We're recording this on a Tuesday, so, maybe a little bit early in the week to kind of forecast that. But again, I think maybe this is a chance for the middle of the defense to really settle in. I don't know if Patrick Queen's going to be available. We know that Alex Highsmith is going to be out for a couple of weeks because he's got a high ankle sprain, and those usually take some time to heal. So I'm a little worried, as far as the secondary goes, because again, if they're not trying to run the ball and Drake May does what he did against Miami this last week, then our secondary could very well just get torched again. But, this might just be a super high scoring game, and it might come down to one of those fluke plays. Once again, is Aaron Rodgers going to keep the pace? I think he might be able to, but it seems like it's probably going to be a shootout in this one if I had to guess.
I'd agree. I do think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be up there, and it'll be interesting to see if New England adjusts and runs more to try and test our D line. So that'll be a huge test for both teams. Going into my predictions, I think I'm gonna go win. Even though I think like the way I'm feeling, I want to say loss, but I just think my gut is kind of thinking like a win. It may not look the best, but I think that our offense might be able to do what it did against the Jets. I don't know if our defense will improve too much, but I'm gonna say we win 30-27.
Okay, interesting. I don't know this for sure, but I feel like your win predictions after a loss might be 0%. I don't know if you've ever predicted a win after a loss in our 2 years of doing this.
That would be really interesting to go back and see. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case because, again, our losses feel so demoralizing all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and especially I feel like last year was easy to just be like, oh, loss, loss, loss. But yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I'm also going to say a win, and for a similar reason, because do I think do I think the Steelers are better than the Patriots this year? Yes. Does that mean that we'll win? Should we have beaten the Seahawks? Probably yes. But I think that again, I'm looking at the way that the Patriots have rushed so far, and Ramondre Stevenson has been a key piece. I say that with quotation marks on my dynasty fantasy team, and he has not really produced, at least last year, or really since I drafted him. I think, when did we start? 2023? Was that our first year?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
he had a really good 2022, did not have the best 2023, and then had an abysmal year last year. So, and again, Travion Henderson really just hasn't gotten a lot of touches. So I'm wondering if they're still just trying to figure some things out as far as their run game goes. And I think it's an opportunity for us to figure things out defensively. So again, I'm going to say a win. I think it's going to be a lot of Drake May. I think it's going to be a lot of Aaron Rodgers. And I'm hoping that our wide receivers can outshine the wide receivers of the New England Patriots, whom, again, they've got Stephon Diggs, but, he hasn't been necessarily the primary guy. They kind of just have this hodgepodge of nothingness, almost like we have. They've got the one guy, we've got DK Metcalf, they've got Stephon Diggs, and then everything after that is kind of just a crapshoot. And, I think this one's going to be close. I think very similarly, I think we score 30, but I also think they score 30 as well, to kind of keep that trend up in the first 3 weeks of the season. So I'm going to say the Steelers are going to win this one 36-34 in the end.
Okay, interesting. That's a close one. Yeah, I mean, I was debating if our defense would give up another 30-point game, and I could see it being very likely, but I don't know. I don't know if I see us scoring more than like 31, 34 points.
Okay. I mean, this is a mixed bag, and I don't think either of us really know what to expect because, the Patriots are weird, and frankly, the Steelers are weird too. It's kind of this just amalgamation of nothingness. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully we can come out of this one with a here we go Steelers win. And again, this is a stretch where they need to start winning because they have some pretty weak opponents, especially after we saw that J.J. McCarthy is going to be out probably in that Ireland game, and even then, the Vikings did not look great at all. So this is a shot for, a couple of weeks for us to go on a little win streak here. And if they don't, frankly, then, no Super Bowl for us. It might just be one of those years again where we throw in the towel early.
No, and I mean, yeah, and it is unfortunate because this year, I'll be honest. Well, besides the Ravens, our division looks smooth, especially after the Bengals losing Joe Burrow. I think that if Joe Burrow is out 3 months, it's a whole different Bengals team. I don't know if they'll be able to win with Jake Browning throwing 3 picks every week. And then the Ravens, not sure how I fully feel about them, but I don't know if they're as strong as they were last year, especially 2 years ago. So it would be unfortunate if we just completely fumble a lot of games here because I think this is a very winnable AFC North this year.
I think so too, especially again, like you said, with the injury to Joe Burrow. And I was high on the Bengals coming into this season. I said that they were going to go 14-3. They're 2-0 right now, but again with Jake Browning, I think he's a quality backup, but he's no Joe Burrow. So that'll be interesting to see. But as far as this goes, the Boardman Black and Gold is sponsored by Zecca Enterprises, crafting furniture solutions in northwestern Pennsylvania. You can call 910-777-3871 to turn your furniture problems into furniture solutions. Steelers come away with a dud against the Seattle Seahawks, but they've got a chance to rebound against the New England Patriots. Couple of 1-1 teams going into New England, seeing who the Steelers can take advantage of this week. Is it going to be the defense? Is it going to be the offense? We don't know. And frankly, we'll just have to figure that one out. I do not believe we will have an outside perspective episode this week. My one guy that I thought I was going to get on, he was unable to come on this week. So no outside perspective this week. So the next time you'll hear from us on the Boardman Black and Gold podcast will be after this Patriots week here in week 3 of the NFL season. As for me, I'm Zane Bloom, joined by David DeSantis. We will see you next time on the Boardman Black and Gold podcast.